Hi, I'm Sherry Kendall, and welcome to Hometown Salutes. Today, I have Fayette County veteran Jeff Griffin. Welcome, Jeff, to our show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? What branch of service did you go into?
I was in the United States Navy.
Okay. For how many years?
I was in there for 4 years, from 1981 to 1984.
And why did you pick the Navy?
Actually, my mother had a friend that was a sailor, and I'd always been intrigued. Watched a lot of naval movies, and decided to go in the Navy.
So fresh out of high school, you went straight in?
Yeah, a few months after I got out of high school.
So how did your parents, how did they take that? Were they supportive?
Yeah. My mother was a little leery, of course, as always, going away and being in the service. Afraid I was going to get hurt, but Dad was all for it. He was in the Army for 6 or 8 years, served in Korea, and so he was all for it.
So you came from a Navy family, or from a military family? Was he Navy too?
No, he was no, he was Army.
He was Army.
He was Army, and my brother had served in the Army for a few years too. But other than me knowing my mom's friend, the sailor, I'm not sure why I went in the Navy.
That's funny. So you did basic training. Where did you go for basic training, and how long did that last?
I was able to go to Orlando, Florida. That was 12 weeks at the time. So because I went in submarines, I got to pick where my basic training was. So that's why I got to go to Orlando.
Okay. So when you left, the day that you left, I mean, they just put you on a bus and ship you out, or how does that work?
No, actually we went to Indianapolis, what they call AFES. It's where they give you your physical. It's where they tell you all about it. It's where you sign all your papers, and you go to AFES. You go there the night before. The next morning they fly you out. And this was in 81. So they flew me to Orlando, Florida, and I started my boot camp there.
All right. So did you know anybody else that went?
Didn't know a person. Obviously, well, at AFES, there was a few other people going in the Navy as well, so I met them at the time, but I didn't know them. Couple of my buddies actually took me up to AFES that morning to leave because I didn't want Mom to go. She was supportive, but she was upset about it. So.
Oh, I don't blame her. So is there anything memorable in basic training that you'd like to share? A funny story or something?
Well, in basic, it was pretty much hard work, a lot different than what I was used to as far as that, calisthenics and running, and of course, we had a lot of training, too. That was the first time I ever was in a smoke room. Was able to get in a smoke room with my gas mask, and spent a lot of time in the pool. Being the Navy, they wanted to make sure we could swim and life-saving efforts in the pool as well. But there wasn't really a whole lot of funny things in boot camp. It was pretty much just work, just getting out. And I did have all my wisdom teeth pulled when I was in boot camp, and that was quite an experience. I didn't do well with that, so.
That's funny. So did you? I mean, what is a basic training day? Like, did you start early in the morning? Did you get along with your commander?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
obviously, like I said, it was different. I hadn't been that structured before. But yeah, we were up at 4 o'clock in the morning. We hit the grinder, which is the workout field, is what they called it. It's just a big paved lot's all it is. So we would go out on the grinder, we'd do calisthenics and get all warmed up, and then most of the time we'd walk and or run a mile, and then come back in, get showered, and start our classes. And because it was broken up, we were broken up into different areas, so some of us were going to some classes, and then we were going to other classes as well.
Okay. So did you do any kind of specialized training?
Well, in boot camp, it's just generalized training. Obviously, we had the blue jacket manual that we read out of it, and we learned from it. Basic Navy stuff there. There was really no specific training there because that wasn't the design of that. When you get specific training, you go to what's called A school. So if I were going to be a sonar tech, for example, I would go to a sonar tech A school right out of boot camp. So that's where they sent you. Now, what I did was, since I was going into submarines, when I got out of boot camp, I went straight to Groton, Connecticut, where the submarine school is.
Okay. So how long did you go there for?
Submarine school was 6 weeks, and in that specialized training, they train you how to damage control. If you get a leak, how to fix a leak, how to do emergency descents. If we get stranded on the bottom of the ocean, how to do an emergency descent and hopefully get to the top. Working with torpedoes. Just a lot of various things there that we would need on the submarine.
Okay. So at any point in time, did you wonder, what in the heck did I do?
Well, no, not really. A Midwestern boy, hadn't really seen the ocean that much. I'd been to Florida a few times and on spring break when us guys would go, but hadn't really been on the ocean a lot. So it was both scary and interesting at the same time. Like the escape training, you step out, you're in a tower. They got about 100-foot tower, and you step out in what they call a stanky hood, which is over around you, and it's got air in there. And you step out, and you just shoot up to the top of that to get you out of the sunken submarine. Is what it's for, and it's scary, obviously, but it was quite interesting fun.
I'd have anxiety, I think. So were you stationed at different places when you were in the Navy?
When I got out of boot camp, I went to Groton, as I mentioned. I was there for 6 weeks for sub school, and then I got my orders. And it just so happened the ship that I was going to was there in Groton, which is the USS Leonard P. Lipscomb, which is a nuclear, what they call a fast attack boat. It was there. And then we were there probably, 2 months, and then we transitioned to Norfolk Naval Shipyard. We changed home ports, and we went into Portsmouth Naval Shipyard for overhaul.
Okay. So when you were on the ship, then what was a typical day in the Navy like on your ship?
Kind of the same thing. When I went in, I was what they call a non-rate. I didn't go into a specific rate. I wasn't a sonarman, I wasn't a fire tech, I wasn't a quartermaster, I wasn't anything. I was just non-rated. And we do that, or they allow you to do that, so that you can kind of see what area you want to get into. Whenever you go aboard a ship, your first 3 months, you do what's called mess cooking. Which means that you help out in the kitchen, just to get you used to the boat itself, meet your crew, and so I did that for the first 3 months. Then I got to working with and talking with a yeoman, which is the ship's clerk, and then I transitioned into the yo shack there at on the sub, and they take care of finances and medical records and your records any records that are associated with it, and mail and payroll and all kinds of stuff. So it's and it's small. There was only 3 of us in the shack.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So how many does the ship hold? How many of you guys were on the ship?
My boat had 157 was the full complement. So yeah, and that's made up of sonar, and then of course being nuclear, we had all of our nuclear guys, our nuc techs that ran the actual motor and to do that, and then we had ICmen, which are radio folks. We got radar, we got quartermasters that tell us where we are. We got torpedo men, we got ship's store clerks, all kinds of people. So.
Okay. So is there any kind of a story or something funny or any kind of experience that you can remember that you'd like to share?
Well, A little bit of both. Both funny and it probably the most scared I've ever been in my life. We came out of the shipyard, and we have what's called a snorkel mast. And what that means is we're at periscope depth, and this mast goes up so we can run our diesel engine if something happens to the nuclear portion of it. So we come out of the shipyard, and the folks that had put in the top of it, there's a valve that opens and closes. If it gets wet, it closes, so the water doesn't come down, because we're still moving at periscope depth. And they had wired that switch in backwards. So when it was dry, it was shut, and when it was wet, it was open. So I was in the yo shack, which is just down from the conning tower, and water just started pouring in the yo shack, down those ladders outside. And of course, that's not a good thing in a submarine. You don't want water in a submarine. So we was able to surface and get everything taken care of and went back to port. But yeah, it's pretty scary.
So they find out who did that?
Well, I don't know. That's the shipyard's deal, but it was about the scariest thing that happened to me the whole time. So yeah, a lot of water.
Oh, wow. So food and stuff, what did you eat?
Well, they fed us very good.
They did?
I actually got tired of lobster because that's one of the things of being in the submarine service. They tried to feed us very good. Of course, now at the end of some of our runs, we were eating powdered milk and drinking powdered milk and what we call plastic eggs, which is powdered eggs and those kind of things. But if at all possible, we always got, every Friday was surf and turf, steak and lobster, every Friday. And obviously when we were in New London, Groton, Connecticut, we had fresh lobster. They would bring us fresh lobster and all that. But it was pretty good. But again, like I said, at the end of a deployment or a run, we would run out because we could only hold so much. So.
Okay.
But yeah, it was really good.
So how many deployments did?
I was after the shipyard. Let's see. I think I was only on about 5 or 6 what you would call deployments. We did a lot of testing after we come out of the shipyard, so we would run down to Puerto Rico for a couple weeks and shoot torpedoes all day for a couple days and then come back. And we did that several times because we were testing all the mechanisms and systems that are associated with the torpedoes. So, but the other deployments, like I said, there was only maybe 4 or 5 at the most actual deployments, missions that I was on because of the shipyard.
Okay. So did you get to take Liberty? And if you did, where would you go?
Well, yeah, we had Liberty in Puerto Rico, which was kind of neat. And a lot of times on the way back, we would stop in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty good time to be able to be there. But because of the nature of us and being on the East Coast, we didn't go to a lot of ports. We went out to sea, but we did not go to any what we call Liberty ports, other than Puerto Rico's about the only one I remember. I do remember that we were going to go to New Zealand one time. And of course, again, this was back in the 80s. So, we were supposed to be the first nuclear submarine to come into New Zealand. And that got canceled because they didn't want a nuclear submarine in New Zealand at that time. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you had downtime on the submarine, what would you do?
Mostly read. Read a lot because they didn't have iPods and they didn't have a lot of electronic reading then. So I had to actually read a book. So so reading a lot, studying. There was a lot of studying to do because when you're on a submarine, you have to qualify in submarines, which means that you have to know every system in the boat in case something goes wrong. Obviously, damage control, you have to know a lot about the high pressure, low pressure blow system, how how to make the ship surface if you need to in an emergency. So there was a lot of studying when I first started. When I was doing my mess cooking is when I did a lot of studying but I did get qualified in submarine. So probably next to my kids, that's probably one of the most proud things that I've ever did.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So
what are some life lessons that you learned from being in the military?
Well, I learned responsibility. I learned a lot of patriotism. I learned to respect people. I learned that all people are the same, regardless of color. Had a lot of good friends that were black and Puerto Rican and Mexican and so on, and still do to this day. They're good friends of mine. So probably responsibility was the biggest thing that I learned, because I don't know that I was headed down a very good path here at home. So that was kind of another reason I went in the service, but to do that as well. But respect your elders. That was a big thing.
Yeah. So are you able to keep in touch with your military buddies?
Yes, I actually just had a reunion back in September or October. Sorry. We try to do it every 2 years because we are getting older now. Yeah, so we try to do a reunion every 2 years. And this year was a low turnout, obviously due to COVID and several other factors. But anyway, I got to see about probably 15 of the guys that I served with, and then of course I got to see a bunch of guys that served either before me on the Lipscomb or after me on the Lipscomb. So I got to meet a bunch of new people. And we did that up in Groton, Connecticut. Spent 3 days up there and had a great time.
So it was in Connecticut?
Oh, yeah.
That you went up?
Yeah. We try to move it around a little bit. 4 years ago, well, let's see. Yeah, 4 years ago we were in Norfolk, Virginia. So that was the last station that I was at. So
when you went back to those two places, had it changed a lot?
Oh, yeah. And it's funny because I actually drove around in Norfolk. Was where I was stationed when I was married the first time. And I actually went back to the old house, 4053 Flowerfield Lane.
Really?
And I remembered that. And the apartment complex was pretty much the same. They just put fresh paint on it. And the mall that was out in front of there is now gone. It was demolished and there was new condos in there. So, but yeah, it was very interesting to do that because that's the first time I'd been back. And, well, let's see, almost 30 years. Yeah, probably 30 years.
Wow. Yeah, I bet that was interesting.
Yeah, it was. It was really good.
So all in all, you're glad that you joined the service? I mean, was that the best direction?
Yeah, so I wouldn't have changed that for anything. There's been many times that I've regretted not staying in longer. I only did 4 years. My wife was pregnant with my son at the time, and I didn't want to be at sea while they were growing up, so we decided to move back home and raise a family.
Okay, let's see. So after the service, you want to tell us what you've done after the service?
Sure. So I got out of the Navy in August of '84, and I went to work for a local farmer, and I worked for them probably a couple years. And then I got interested in law enforcement kind of when I was in the Navy. So I went down to the local sheriff's department and got on the reserves. Become a reserve sheriff deputy. They had an opening, and I got hired and went to work for the Fayette County Sheriff's Department in February of '87. And so then I went through the ranks there. Spent 17 years there. I worked in the jail,
Wow.
Then I went out on the road, and I was an investigator for a while, taught the DARE program, which was another rewarding thing that I was able to do while I was on the Sheriff's Department. I spent 17 years there. Then I was able to take a position with, at the time, It's called Spillman Technologies, but now it's Motorola. Motorola bought us out in like 2016, I think it was. But what it is, it's the software program that public safety writes their reports in. Law, fire, and EMS write their reports in that. And I became, well, our department got that software. And then that company had a position open for a trainer, and I became a trainer. So I went around and trained everyone how to use the software. And I did that for 17 years.
Wow.
And then in January of last year, I retired from them. And now I'm back home because I wanted to be with my grandkids and my kids and of course, my wife now. And then I'm just today. I worked up at the airport for a while. I'm working at Midwest Surplus Liquidators now, so putting furniture together. Nice, easy day, you know.
Just having fun.
Yes.
So how many kids, grandkids?
I have 2 kids. I have a boy and a girl, and then I have 3 grandkids. My oldest, Riley, she'll be 13 next month, in January. Yeah, in January. My youngest is Claire, and those are both from my son Jeremy. And Claire will be 3 next year, I think in May.
You're doing good.
Yeah, I think in May. And then my grandson, he just turned 7 on the 25th. He's Austin, and then he is my daughter, April, and Ryan's.
Okay. So do your kids, are they all here in Fayette County?
Yes,
in Fayette County?
I only have the 2. So, well, my daughter actually lives up in Cambridge.
Okay.
So
they're all close.
Yeah, they're all close, and I get to get the kids, get the grandkids, and spend time with them. So it's very rewarding. So it's good being home.
Yeah.
I traveled a lot with Motorola, so.
Okay. So you'd said earlier when you got into the sheriff's department, you said the Navy got you interested in that. So what did you do in the Navy that
it was just, there was security watches and things that we had to stand because not only were we a nuclear submarine, we carried nuclear weapons as well. So we would have to stand watch either topside or the below decks watch, and you just make sure that the ship is secure. So how that got me interested in law enforcement, I have no idea, but I take that's what it did.
Yeah.
And then also, a friend of mine knew I was getting out of the Navy, so she had called my wife at the time and said that the state police were taking applications, and I thought, well, I might try that. So I tried that 2 or 3 times and didn't make that, of course, and they told me that being a reserve officer would help me get the experience that might be able to get me on the state police. But I ended up staying with the sheriff's department. I liked that a lot better anyway. So that's how it got me involved.
So were you on the road a lot with the sheriff's department?
Well, yeah.
You started in the jail? That was probably the new jail, right?
Yeah. I actually started in the old jail, and then the new jail. Once the new jail was built, we moved over. That was a little different. The old jail.
Say, you saw a lot.
Oh yeah.
Then.
The old jail was. It was pretty bad. But yeah, I moved over to the new jail, and then I ended up getting a road position, and then was out on the road, and actual deputy out on the road. So.
Did you do like any detective work or anything?
Yeah, about 4 years before I left the sheriff's department, I was the department's investigator. So that was really neat.
I was gonna say, I think that would be really interesting.
It is. It's not like the CSI shows and those things. I mean,
it's not?
Oh no. I wish it was that easy. Of course, that was in '80, the mid '90s. So technology's changed a lot, but it's nothing like that. So still today, it's not. The guys tell me. So
that's funny. So anything you want to share? I mean, that we didn't hit on before we close out?
I would just say that if anybody is even thinking about going in the service, it's the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. For a long time I didn't consider myself a veteran because I didn't serve during wartime. But I've had so many wartime veterans tell me, no, if you serve your country, you serve your country, whether
Exactly.
it's during wartime or not. But yeah, I'm pretty proud of it.
Yeah, you should be too. All right. Well, Jeff, I just want to thank you for taking the time out to come here and share with us today your experience in the service. I do want to thank you for your service and your sacrifice, because it's awesome that you spent 4 years, protecting us.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure.
Be sure to tune in next month as we will highlight Jeff's wife, Mary, on another edition of Hometown Salutes.